Hi,
Hello,
I'm Zach,
I'm Braxton.
and we are
From Old to New.
Now today, we're going off of some films that we've already watched, but given the news that's been going on recently, we had no choice but to go with these films.
Yes, in the light of recent events that, and this is also a viewer request video, shout out to my friend Cody. Um, in light of the Johnny Depp trial, we have decided to review Pirates of the Caribbean.
Now, we're going to be doing the whole series, one video at a time. So today we're going to be focusing on the first one,
The Curse of the Black Pearl.
Now, I have to say, I grew up watching Pirates of the Caribbean, so going back and reviewing them is going to be a really great thing for me.
Yeah.
Alright, so let's get started. So basically, we start with the film like in a flashback. We meet some of the characters we get to know later. Will Turner, Elizabeth Swann, her father, and
Captain Norrington,
Mr. Gibbs.
Mr. Gibbs, and basically you start off on a ship traveling to England, where they come upon a shipwreck, and Elizabeth Swann sees Will Turner in the water, and they rescue him, and she finds out that he's a pirate.
Well, he's technically not a pirate. She just assumes he's a pirate because of the medallion he has on him. So he's just like, so like they find him. She takes the necklace from him to avoid him like being hung for piracy. And as they were leaving, they go find more. She ends up seeing like the Black Pearl sailing off, and we flash forward into the future. We're like, she's grown up. Will's gone on to become a blacksmith. She's like growing up to become like a lady of the a noble woman.
Yes, and she is at like she's at a ceremony for Captain Norrington. He's being promoted to Commodore.
Yes.
And
they're trying to push her to marry. Her father's trying to push her to marry him since he's like a man of noble standing. And then we're given like one of the best character introductions of all time. We see Johnny Depp's Jack Sparrow coming in, just hanging loose on a dinghy that's sinking.
Yes, his ship is sinking, and it's choreographed so perfectly. Like the ship is just about almost completely sunken by the time he gets to the dock, and he just steps onto it with ease.
There's like one little detail that I really love that they did. As he's flowing into the port, he like the minute he sees like those hung pirates, he just takes a minute to like pay his respects. I think that kind of shows he's very different from other pirates. Like usually they just assume like, oh, that's normal, but he's just like,
yeah,
it's you. Here's to you, man. And so like he's in Port Royal trying to find like another ship to take so he can try to like maybe get his old ship back. So while he's like trying to steal another one by like just like conning his way through like to some guards.
Yeah, and these guards, they aren't just like a one-time appearance and then they go away. They're seen throughout the movies. Really, they're in more than just the first one.
Yeah,
and they're actually a very comedic duo. They're very funny.
Yeah. And so Elizabeth, while at the ceremony, she falls from like the building into the water. So Jack jumps in to save her, but because she's wearing the necklace that she got off of Will, it sends out like kind of like a signal throughout the ocean.
Yeah. And he gets her out of the water, and then the guards kind of run up to help out, and they're like, she's not breathing, and this movie's set in like really, really old England,
yeah,
and stuff like that. So all the outfits that like the women wear are like super tight,
yeah,
and like very dressed up. And so in order to get her to breathe, he like cuts like part of her outfit off,
yeah,
and she starts breathing. And there's a very funny part where one of the guards is like, I would have never thought of that, and he's like, clearly you've never been to Singapore.
And then he's like, you can obviously see, and then like he notices the necklace, and he's like, he obviously knows something about it. He's like, where did you get this?
Yeah.
And eventually he's like caught up by the other guards, and they assume like, and they see like he's a pirate, and apparently due to like the mark on his arm, like P for piracy, but he also, because of his tattoo, they immediately identify him as Jack Sparrow.
Yeah, and at first Elizabeth's father he's just like, shoot him, and then they find out he's a pirate, and he's like, hang him, and so it's like,
So
you can tell that pirates are not welcome.
yeah. Well, to be fair, like pirates do, they rely on training, and pirates steal all their stuff.
Yeah.
And Elizabeth's like, he saved my life. We should spare him. I mean, come on, he saved my life. And like Jack just like he uses some finesse to like force them to let him go. He takes off running into town, where eventually he meets up with Will Turner.
Yes, and we get a very, very well choreographed fight sequence.
I feel like that's a great fight to start the series with, because it's just so like this is just two guys fighting it out, and that's kind of like something I really loved about the Pirates thing. The action is just subtle, like old-fashioned fighting.
And the music, it goes very well with the fight scenes. And during the fight, Jack, he's like, who makes all of these? And then Will's like, I do. I make all of these and I practice with them every day.
Yeah. And then thus begins Jack's running joke of calling him a unit, because that's why he practices so much.
Yeah.
And then eventually, Jack somewhat wins the fight by kind of cheating.
Yeah, he cheats. He pulls out
a gun.
He pulls out a gun, which he has no intention of using.
Yeah, and eventually he's caught by the guards again and sent to prison. And then later that night, the Port Royal is attacked by the Black Pearl and its crew. And immediately Jack is just like, while everyone else is like freaking out in the jail, Jack's like, oh my god, it's back. Like, you can tell, like, that's his ship. He loves that ship. He's glad to see it again.
Yeah, and the movie, it does a very good job of, like, setting up this whole lore and this whole legend of the Black Pearl. It's like the prisoners, they're even like the Black Pearl. I've heard stories they've been taking over settlements for, like, for over 10 years.
Yeah.
And this, that, and the other. And it does a very good job building up kind of like the tension of like, oh my gosh, these pirates must be like the real deal, the scary ones or whatever.
And eventually, they start sacking the town. Some of them go to Elizabeth's home, trying to find the necklace. They assume, now Elizabeth, she assumes that they're after her because, her father's status, so she, pretends to be, so, when they capture her and they take her to the ship, she, just claims, I'm just someone else. I'm just a...
She claims that she's Elizabeth Turner.
A maid, and...
Yeah, and, apparently, we eventually find out that...
They need her.
Yeah, well, they think they need her.
Yes.
Will Turner's father was he eventually finds out his father was a pirate, and he put the curse on the crew of the Black Pearl.
Well, no, it's not exactly. Will's father didn't put the curse on it. The gold was already cursed, so when they found the coins, basically whoever takes a coin from that is cursed to do that. And the only way to break the curse is to bring the coin back, put it back in the chest, and pay with a blood offering.
Yeah.
That's why they need Will Turner, because the last coin they need was taken by him, so only someone with his bloodline can break the curse.
Yeah. So she eventually finds that out the hard way, and they take her to this cave where
they brought back all the treasure.
Yeah, they brought all the treasure back, and beforehand she's brought onto the ship, and she had called on the rule of parley.
Yeah, I also love that. It's kind of like John Wick. They may be criminals, but they still have a code of honor.
Yeah, and with parley, she has to be taken to the crew's captain.
And we introduced another great character from the series, Captain Barbossa, who, in himself, he's a great character. I'll give him that.
Yes, Jeffrey Rush played him very well.
I have to say though, one thing I love about Captain Barbossa, even though he's a bloodshed pirate, I feel like his motives in this movie are kind of, you understand his motives. I mean,
it's a little justified.
If you were cursed to walk the earth forever, not feel anything, no pain, no hunger, no thirst. Every time you try to eat something, you just feel constantly thirsty. You're basically dead. You want to break that curse.
And so, when you see the pirates, they look like people, like flesh and stuff like that. But then you come to find out that when they're under the moonlight, like zombies and corpses.
Yes.
And so that kind of adds a little bit of horror element to it, so that was really neat.
So like while this is going on, he's determined to like try to get Elizabeth back. So he understands that since Jack Sparrow knows so much about the ship, he can probably lead him back to it. So he breaks him out of prison, where they steal a ship, and Jack kind of fills him in on like his father. And I kind of love how Jack like shows respect to Will's father. He's just like, he was a good guy, very good pirate. Like, you know, he doesn't like seem like, you know, he also gives his dad like, you can accept that your father was a pirate and a good man, or you can just not accept it at all.
Yeah, Will, he has this hatred for pirates because he didn't know his father. And he's like, my father was not a pirate. And Jack's basically like, yes, he was.
But he's kind of like his son, like, you know, not all pirates are bad. You could have just made he's probably like trying to tell, maybe he was a pirate because he was trying to do what he could do for you. Like, trying to help. So, like, they go to, like, Tortuga to try to, where they meet up with, old Mr. Gibbs to try to recruit a new crew. They build up a crew, set off for Isla de Muerta. And Will kind of finds out some more stuff about Jack, where we find out he was originally captain of the Black Pearl until a mutiny.
Yes. And then then we eventually get to this big fight scene, which is one of the greater cinematic parts of the movie, I guess, where you have this big battle scene between
The Interceptor and the Black Pearl.
yeah, and there's a very funny moment. Johnny Depp's actually on the Black Pearl.
After being taken prisoner.
Yeah, he's taken prisoner and he's put into the dungeon, and the Interceptor shoots a cannon into the Black Pearl, and Johnny Depp's just like, stop blowing holes in my ship!
Yeah, and that's what also, it kind of demonstrates why Johnny Depp was perfect with the role. He's just so charismatic in his role and his line delivery. He's just like, he's like, you're getting cannon shot at you and you're worried about your ship. It's like, stop, this is mine.
Yeah, he definitely took that part and made it his own, because from what I've heard, Jack Sparrow was actually originally supposed to be a very serious character.
Yeah.
It was not supposed to be that silly, and then Johnny Depp he just went and did his own thing and grew a very successful franchise out of it.
Yeah, basically they took like a guy who was supposed to be like a, you know, like a fighter or a rogue, and then basically turned him into a bard with high charisma points.
Yeah.
That's a D&D reference, by the way. So eventually, like, after they sink the Interceptor and capture the rest of the crew, and Will offers himself up to like save Elizabeth and everyone else, but he's like, okay, the crew can go. He doesn't even like mention Jack. He's like, what?
And you just see Jack is like,
what about me?
Like, he's like, and me. And eventually Elizabeth and Jack are marooned on an island which Jack had been previously sent to by Barbossa.
And like we find out, like, you know, there's this whole elaborate story about how Jack survived, like, you know, he's marooning, like, you know, he survived for 40 days building a raft out of sea turtles, and he's like,
and like this miraculous escape. And then Elizabeth comes to find out that he sat on a beach for 3 days drinking rum
and just got picked up a ride from a couple of smugglers. And he still carries around that one pistol, saving it for the moment.
Yeah, he's allowed like a pistol with like one bullet, so that way he can either starve to death or he can shoot himself
or take vengeance on the person who marooned him.
Yeah, and so that's what he's deciding to use the pistol for. Is he's going to use it on Barbossa to kill him for marooning him on that island.
Eventually, you know, Elizabeth gets out a smoke signal, signaling, like, you know, there's people looking for her, and she convinces them.
It leads to another funny moment where he's like, why is the rum gone? Because she, like, burns all the food and all the rum, and he's like, you're crazy, we're on an island, and you just burned all of our stuff. And
but why is the rum gone?
Yeah.
I mean, I think he would have been okay, like, I would have been fine with the food and everything, but leave the alcohol. We're on a beach. And so, like, they team up with, like, the army to, like, go after, rescue Will and everyone else. And while like on their way back to where Will kind of finds out more about his father, how like he kind of learns more about his father and how a good man he was, like sticking up for Jack for marooning him, like saying like they deserve to be cursed.
But before then, when they get picked up, Elizabeth is trying to convince them, like, hey, we need to go get Will. He's been captured. He's going to get killed. And her father and uh, Commodore Norrington, they're just kind of like, well, that's his fate. Like, he's a blacksmith. Well,
Yeah,
he shouldn't have dealt with pirates and all that kind of stuff. And you can tell she's very frustrated with it. So in order to convince them to pick him up, she accepts the Commodore's proposal,
yeah.
and
They go off to save him, and then like so when they like so like Jack and go sneaks in to like try to convince Barbossa. Turns out he's trying to double. He's like Jack. He may seem like a fool, but he is playing mind game after mind game with people because he's like they think I'm here trying to broker a truce with you, but how about this? You go capture their ship. You give me back the Black Pearl, and you go.
yeah, Jack he's one of those type of people where he does what um, advances him, that betters his situation. He does whatever betters his situation. So if working with Commodore Norrington and the British, if that helps his situation, he goes with them, or if Barbossa helps his situation, he goes with Barbossa.
But you can still see in his eye, he still follows like his own conscience and his own like loyalty.
Yeah.
Because like eventually, like while he's talking about Barbossa, like you can see like the subtle shift of like picking up one of the coins.
Yeah, he steals one of the coins.
And when Barbossa sends his crew to capture the other ship, Jack double crosses him and then begins another great epic sword fight.
Yeah, and this is like one of the final battles. And in the meantime, we have the fight with Jack Sparrow and Barbossa. We also get a fight with the British and the crew of the Black Pearl.
Yeah. And so eventually, like like we discover that like during like this early confrontation with Barbossa, he picked up one of the coins, cursing him so he could be able to have a fighting chance against Barbossa. And during the fight, he gives the coin to Will so that he can pass the curse on. And like he even like sacrifices his bullet, not knowing like if he passed or not to save Elizabeth.
Yeah.
And,
And you, so we see that Jack, he shoots Barbossa, and Barbossa's like, 10 years you carry that bullet and you just wasted it. And then you hear Will say he didn't waste it, and then he drops the coin, breaking the curse, and
killing Barbossa.
Yeah.
And some of the crew members who died.
Yeah.
And so like during that moment, like Jack's like collecting as much treasure as he can before he heads back to the Black Pearl, but what he doesn't know is that the crew escaped, and that his crew escaped and took the ship.
Yeah.
Leaving him behind because that's the code. Any pirates who stays behind is left behind.
Yeah. And so they all get back, and Jack is about to be executed by hanging. And
I just love how like they're just reading off this whole list of things. Okay, let's see what we got here: piracy, theft, burglary. Wow, so much stuff.
it's like a whole like grocery list.
And I love how during that moment, like even if they're just talking about it, it's just like it's Captain Jack Sparrow.
Yeah, they say Jack Sparrow, and it's like it's Captain Jack Sparrow. And so they've put the noose on him, and they've started the drum roll, and all of a sudden you see a figure in the crowd moving, and you find out that it's Will, and he throws a sword right under Jack's feet as soon as they drop the boards, saving him. And they've started this whole escape plan and are then captured, but
Elizabeth is able to convince them like to let them go,
yeah,
or like at least let Will go. And
Yeah.
Jack gives like a final goodbye. He's like, "This will be the day you almost caught Captain." Falls off the cliff. Like,
yeah, he falls off like before he can finish his famous catchphrase, and then one of them's like, "Idiot, he's got nowhere to go but back to the news." But as he's saying that, the Black Pearl shows up and he swims over to his ship, and
they decide like to give him like a 1 day head start.
yeah, Norrington, he kind of becomes the good guy in this situation where he's just like, we'll give him a head start. Like, he's not necessarily, he's good for his own purpose.
Yeah, I think he's like a lawful. He's very lawful.
Yeah,
honorable.
And he basically he kind of realizes that Elizabeth doesn't
love him.
Yeah,
Doesn't love Will.
and yeah, he looks at he looks at his sword, which Will made, and it's like, this is a beautiful sword. I'd expect the person that made it would take as much care of anything with any aspect of his life as he would with his sword. And so he's basically kind of like, okay, yeah, you can have her.
And I kind of like that subtle respect he's giving him. Like,
yeah, like, in a sense, he kind of goes from being like the bratty character almost to like, you kind of get to like him at the end of the movie.
And so, like, during that time, Elizabeth and Will end up together, and Jack finally makes it back to the ship. He's like, I thought you guys were supposed to follow the code. Well, codes are like guidelines. Not really meant to be followed.
And so, he's eventually like, okay, y'all, get to work and stuff like that,
and get ready to set off on one next adventure.
And that's the movie.
Yeah, and I feel like going back over through this, it's such a great film, great series overall, and it's so good because Johnny Depp makes it so good.
Yeah, when we had gotten this requested to us, I had seen it, but it had been a like really long time since I had seen it, so I didn't really remember much of it. And then I ordered it and I watched it and I was like, wow, this is really good.
Yeah. And we're kind of glad that people glad bringing back to us this.
Yeah. Thanks for the suggestion, and if any of y'all have suggestions for movies for us to review, let us know in the comments.
And we definitely give this movie 10 out of 10.
Yeah, definitely.
Right, one of Disney's greatest live action films. If you haven't watched it, watch it, please.
Definitely check it out.
And
we'll see you next time.
We'll see you next time with Dead Man's Chest.
Bye.